friends, this is Laura with Potpourri of Life. I hope that you're doing great. It's early in the morning. Well, it's not too early, but it's early enough. This morning I decided that I am going to make something with those raisins that I use when I make a creamer. When I make my morning creamer that we can have with the coffee, I also make a sweetened condensed milk, which I shared in a previous video. But what ends up happening is I end up with leftover raisins. Now I could put them into cookies, and I had thought about doing that, but I decided that I was going to make a bread of some sort. So I went through my cookbooks. I don't know if I can take this off and then get it back in there, but I have this cookbook that's been on my shelf for a long time. When I worked in the corporate world, in accounting, once in a while salespeople would come by, and a lot of us, they might be selling cookbooks and stuff like that, and cookbooks was one of those things that I really enjoyed. So that's been on my shelf for many years, and I don't make much out of it, but I really do like the cookbook. I should probably just go through and cut out a few of those recipes and ditch the book. So what I'm going to do today is I am going to make a recipe. It's called applesauce bread. I will be using applesauce that I've already canned. I do not have any brown sugar. The brown sugar I have is rock solid hard. And so I've got to figure out how to stop that. But I mean, I don't have any, the homemade bread, he goes through too quickly for me to use that. And homemade bread is way too good. So anyways, so I'm going to make this. I will tell you what the recipe is calling for, but that does not mean I'm going to use those things. So instead of brown sugar, I'm going to use white sugar and use a little bit of molasses in it. So you're going to hear a few different things that I'm using. In addition, I don't know if you can see it. I'm going to start changing the camera a little bit. Over here are my water glassed eggs. And these I did because when we stopped having chickens, I was saving the eggs. We water glassed them, and they've been doing great for my baking and for morning breakfast. So it's been great. I'm glad that I did that until we get our next set of pullets in. So those are some things that you might not typically see, but hopefully by me altering this recipe to meet what I have on hand might encourage you to do the same thing. Just because you have a recipe book that has these ingredients and you don't have it does not mean you have to go running to the store. Now this morning it's still about 20-30 degrees. I really didn't check the temperature, but it's still cool. Tomorrow we're going to be getting snow midday, so I'm not really in the mood to go to the grocery store for any little pieces because the stores will be crowded. Here in New Hampshire, if there's a winter storm brewing, the place to go is the grocery store. And I'm just not one for crowds. So that's why I'm going to use what we have. And those are the situations, like say you can't get out of your yard, you can't get out, you're going to want to use whatever you have to create. So let's go on with this applesauce bread, and I'm going to change the camera so you'll see with me working with it. Okay, so the first ingredient is some brown sugar. I don't have it, but it does require 2/3 cup of sugar, brown sugar. Let's see what I got here. Here's a 2/3 cup measure. I'm going to put some sugar in. It's not brown sugar. To make it brown sugar, I'm going to add in some molasses. And that was probably about a tablespoon. And what you do is you just mix it up, and it'll turn into a brown sugar mixture. And because I'm going to be mixing other stuff in, you can see how it's turning into a brown sugar mixture. I'm not going to keep mixing it because I want to get the other things in. The other thing that it requires is cooking oil. And I have chosen to use some tallow that I put up from the beef fat that I got. Okay. So with the tallow or cooking oil, it's 1/3 of a cup. Now you can use the oil of choice. It does say a cooking oil. I'm just using the tallow because this is our preference as of late. I do have olive oil on hand, but I prefer to use that in my salad dressings. Okay. The next ingredient is 1 cup of sweetened applesauce. In my opinion, you can use plain applesauce, or you can use the sweetened applesauce as they recommend. My applesauce is generally plain, and part of the reason is, I'm going to change the camera again. Part of the reason I tend to use plain applesauce is because when we eat it, we prefer it that way. If we want it sweetened up a little bit, we just add the sugar. But the sugar that's in here, the molasses syrup, will be sweet enough for us. So if you want sweetened applesauce, you can go to the store and get that. Now it does say to use a cup. I'm just going to start pouring some in. Just mix this in. And I will keep the remainder so that if I need more moisture in this, I will have it. Alright, the next ingredient is 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. And I have flour somewhere. I had everything else taken out. Let's see what we got here. Excuse the door. So 1.5 cups of all-purpose flour. I am going to, I think that's what it said, right? 1.5 cups. I'm going to use my half-cup measure. And measure that 3 times to get the 1.5. 2, 3. And I'm going to mix that in. I mix as I go. So it's not completely mixed in yet. I'm going to turn the camera again so you can see what I'm doing more. So it's mixing in really good, but I'm going to add in my baking soda, which is 1 teaspoon of baking soda and 1 teaspoon of baking powder. Baking soda in there. And a teaspoon of baking powder. The next thing that we're going to be adding in is some salt. And it says a teaspoon of salt. This isn't quite a teaspoon, so I'm just going to have one of those. I tend not to put tons of salt in everything. Sometimes my soups and my meatloaves and that kind of stuff, I might have more salt. But my baked goods, I don't like it really salted. The next item will be a teaspoon of cinnamon and a teaspoon of nutmeg. Sorry, this is the nutmeg. And yes, they're the same. Sometimes when they do nutmeg and cinnamon together, they don't always have the same values. Okay, cinnamon. Oops, so sorry about that. We'll mix that in a little bit. And it's a little thick, so I might end up putting in more applesauce. But right now, that's what we're going to do. And the next item that we're going to put in is 1.5 cups of rolled oats. Again, I'm going to use the 1/2 cup measure and measure it 3 times for the 1.5 cups. One thing that I have not yet put in are 2 eggs. So I was thinking, man, this isn't moist enough. I'm like, eggs were at the top. So let's, now, what I have here is the eggs that let's see, you can't see that? Or you can? Okay. So I need to actually rinse off the eggs from the stuff that's in these eggs. So I'm going to open this up. And what I did was I didn't have to do anything other than the lime treatment that we had here. So we just put it in the water and rinse it off. And look at how pretty they are. They're beautiful. So we're going to put them in here. And let those rinse off for a minute. Take these off. Because I want to start my oven at 350. Alright? And then I'm going to get a bowl for the eggs. And for all eggs, when I do this, I always, oops, I'm not talking to you. Whenever I use eggs, whether it's right from the chickens today or from this, no matter where I get my eggs, I always break them separately. Most often you don't need to when it's fresh from the farm. I still do it. So it's just a habit I grew up with. And I have one egg going in. That one was fine. Mix these in here. Add a little bit more liquid in here. Now the reason I'm using raisins, this particular recipe actually calls for dry prunes. About a cup of them. Is that right? A 3/4 cup, and walnuts and stuff. I'm going to use my raisins because that's what I have. And I don't think I'm going to need to add in that extra applesauce. because this is a nice blend. So these raisins, as I shared, I made creamer, and to make the sweetened condensed milk that I used to make that creamer, I had to soak raisins in it overnight, or at least 5 hours. And so I saved these because they're still plump and yummy, and we're going to add them into this. And yes, you could have thrown the raisins out. I'm just not one that wants to waste food. You can kind of see that the sweetened condensed milk type texture is in there with the, because there was a little bit of milk left. And that's only going to complement this bread. So let's mix in these raisins. Looks like cookie dough, but it's not. And truly, that was really what I had planned on doing. And this is what the mixture looks like. Looks pretty good. Now I need to get the bread pan ready, and all I'm going to do is I'm going to take a little bit of that tallow. I know it's here. There it is. And I'm just going to put some into the bread pan. Get a paper towel. And you don't need to have it, you don't have to have it really thick. It really depends on, you know, what you want. Like my husband puts a lot of butter in when he made the bread. I don't know if you watched that video. He did a lot of butter. You don't need to, but it does give it a buttery flavor. This, we're not looking for the buttery flavor. We're looking for the tallow just to keep it from sticking to the side of the pan. Okay. So it looks like it's going to be a heavy bread. And by the way, when you use tallow versus vegetable oil, tallow will make it a little heavier. Get something else out to make this work easier. The silicone spatulas are nice because they just get right in there and they get all the pieces up. I hope you all rested well on the overnight. And plan to have a great day. Okay, so this is all set. I'm not putting any sugar on top. I'm not doing any of that. I am just going to take this and now put it into the oven. And well, the stove isn't quite up to temperature yet, so that's not going to happen quite yet. But so this is a really easy, simple recipe. Sorry. And let's see, it's going to go into the oven, 350 degrees Fahrenheit. Grease a loaf of grease a loaf pan, a 9x3, and 3 inches tall. So let's see, and it's going to bake for 45 to 50 minutes. I think we got it. So that's what I'm going to do. Once the buzzer goes off, that's going to go into the oven. And when I get back, you'll see what it's all about. I shall be back. Okay, so the timer went off, so I am back. It smells really good in here. What do you think, David?
It does. It smells awesome.
Let's see what this looks like. Ooh, that looks delightful. What do you think, folks? Isn't that beautiful? Let's get a, could you get me a toothpick since you're standing over there?
Sure.
We'll make sure that the toothpick goes in and comes out clean before I turn the oven off. So my husband is now up, and we'll see how this works. This is beautiful. Okay. So this looks great. Now, in sharing that, we're going to just let this cool off, but the darkness I wanted to share. Remember, I used molasses with the white sugar, so it made it the brown sugar, so it made it a little darker because of the molasses. But you got the raisins, and you've got other yummy stuff. Oh, I can't wait to try it. And the other thing is, I did open, like I said, I opened the jar of applesauce. One of the things that we'll be able to save is my husband will be able to take what's left, put it in a container, and bring it to work for a snack if he chooses. So I'll be back in a second because that's when we're going to cut the bread. So give me a few minutes. Oh yeah. So I'm going to start cutting, not cutting the bread, it's still too early, but I'm going to change this. There's the bread pan. What I'm doing is, this is like a little butter knife that I have, and I really like these kind of knives. And so I'm just going around the edges, even though I put tallow all around the edges. And what I'm trying to do is get this so it loosens up. I mean, this is typical knowledge, but if somebody is new to baking, they might not know that. Let's see what I got here. What I do is I just kind of like move it about in hopes that I can loosen up underneath. Okay. Oh no! Sometimes that happens. All right. We'll get the plate off there. What happens is it twisted a little bit, so the bread kind of fell apart. I am not worried though, because just looking at this bread, see, sometimes we can get disappointed. You got to look at how it looks inside. And I think that's going to be the part that's important, is how tasty it is. It's hot in my hands. You weren't here for the explosion.
I'm sorry.
No. It cracked underneath, so it went bloop. And I need to convince him that it said bloop, but he won't agree with me. So basically what we're going to do here is just have this kind of like, you know, like on the side, you know, maybe I'll make him some eggs and bacon or something and have it on the side, but it'll still be good. You're going to still have some at work, right?
Oh yeah. It'll taste good.
I'm tempted to try it right now. It's hot. It's like a big oatmeal raisin cookie. And it's very, very good. David, the piece that I bit out is on the bread, on the cutting board.
All right.
So I'm glad this happened, because not everything in life is perfect. Things are not going to go our way. And it's really about our attitude on how we're going to handle it. This happened. but we will still enjoy this. Friends, I hope you're having a great day, and I might be back to share a few things, but I'll be right back. So, my experience today, what I would do in the future. Did you see that bread flop? It kind of went poof all over the place. That was not fun. What I ended up doing was, because there was parts inside that were a little heavy, so they were not cooked all the way through, but it's fine. It's called A Lesson in Life. So I've just cut it up into little like cookie chunks. So, David, what do you think about it? Are you still fine with it, even though it's not sliced bread?
Yeah, tastes really good.
So, and I think that's the part that I'm trying to get to is like, we can have mistakes. Things can happen. And in this case, it's like when I put the toothpick in, it came out clean. There was nothing on it. So next time when I do this, I'll put a note on that recipe to cook it a little bit longer, another 10 minutes. And then it probably would be fine. And then again, of course, I was trying to take it out before it was totally cool. Meaning not cool to do, but rather the bread being cool. So I'm glad that I could be transparent with you because mistakes do happen. And but I don't think it was a horrible mistake because he plans on eating it. So, but it's kind of cool. He has little chunks he can eat. However, I'm babbling. Anyways, I hope that I encouraged you to realize that, okay, you can use other ingredients. You can do alterations to your recipes. And yeah, make sure it's cooked all the way. I gotta get a top. Do they have long sticks to do that? Toothpick has always been fine. But with our mistakes, we can still have tasty food. So do the best you can, live with what you got, and enjoy life. God bless.